Greetings, everyone, and welcome to the Occult Think Tank. My name is Greg. In this program, I am going to talk about two things. First, if you want to suggest a rabbit hole for me to go down, don't be cryptic in your messages to me. Because I had somebody mention the Tree of Death, and they included a picture of what I assumed was a meme that was more Satanism based, in my view, than anything, because it looked like it was doing the inversion of the Kabbalistic Tree of Life. Well, I did a search on the Tree of Death, and I came across something that I thought was rather interesting. Wasn't quite what the person was directing me toward, but it is a Tree of Death, and that is what I will get to first. Here is that. The Tree of Death. Throughout the coast of the Caribbean, Central America, the northern edges of South America, and even in South Florida, there can be found a pleasant-looking, beachy sort of tree, often laden with small greenish-yellow fruits that look not unlike apples. You might be tempted to eat the fruit. Do not eat the fruit. You might want to rest your hand on the trunk or touch a branch. Do not touch the tree trunk or any branches. Do not stand under or even near the tree for any length of time whatsoever. Do not touch your eyes while near the tree. Do not pick up any of the ominously shiny tropic green leaves. You might want to slowly but firmly back away from this tree. You would not find any argument from any botanist who has studied it. This is the manchineel, sometimes known as the beachy apple, or more accurately in Spanish-speaking countries as La Manzanella de la Muerte, which translates to the little apple of death, or as Arborol de la Muerte, tree of death. Warning: all parts of the manchineel are extremely poisonous. The content of this document is strictly informational. Interaction with and ingestion of any part of this tree may be lethal. This is not an exaggeration. The fruits, though described as sweet and tasty, are extraordinarily toxic. Fatalities are not known in modern literature, though it's certainly possible that people have died from eating the fruit of the manchineel. Shipwrecked sailors have been reported to have eaten manchineel fruits, and rather than dying a violent death, they had inflammations and blisters around the mouth. Other people have been diagnosed with severe stomach and intestinal issues, says Roger Hammer, a naturalist and botanist who has written many books about the flora of the Florida manchineel. We do have, thankfully, a description of what it is like to eat the fruit. Mother Nature Network alerts us to a paper written by radiologist Nicola Strickland, who unwisely chomped down on a manchineel fruit back in 2000 on the Caribbean island of Topongo. To quote from her paper, "I rashly took a bite of this fruit and found it pleasantly sweet. My friend also partook at my suggestion. Moments later we noticed a strange peppery feeling in our mouths, which gradually processed to a burning, tearing sensation and tightness of the throat. The symptoms worsened over a couple of hours until we could barely swallow solid food because of the excruciating pain, and a feeling of a huge obstructing paragenial lump. Sadly, the pain was exuberated by most alcoholic beverages, although mildly appeased by pina coladas, but more so by milk alone. Over the next 8 hours, our oral symptoms slowly began to subside, with our cervical lymph nodes became very tender and easily palpable. Recounting our experience to the locals, excitedly frank horror and incredulity. Such was the fruit's poisonous reputation. And I did that not to make fun of this, but to just differentiate between this person's story and me reading it. The sap, milky and white, is spectacularly toxic. It causes burns like blisters upon any contact with skin. If you're unfortunate enough to get it in your eyes, temporary blindness is highly likely. The sap is found throughout the tree, including in the bark and leaves. So don't touch any of it. The specific toxins found in this sap and in the fruits remain particularly unknown, but not unused. The Aboriginal people of the Caribbean were familiar with this tree and used it for many purposes. The sap, in particular, was used to tip arrows. It is believed that the Calusa used it in that manner to kill Juan Ponce de Leon on his second trip to Florida in 1521, says Hammer. Manchineel is a member of a family of plants known as the spurges. The name comes from purge, because although these plants have toxic sap, the toxicity varies, and some can be used as a laxative. Spurges are found worldwide in various forms, ranging from tiny herb-like plants to large bushes and trees. Manchineel is one of the largest, reaching up to 50 feet in height. But despite its dangerous reputation, it is not the most famous. That would be the poinsettia, the Manchineel's more festive cousin. Juan Ponce de Leon, the arrow that killed him, was said to be tipped with the sap from the Manchineel tree. The Manchineel tree tends to live along the coast, especially in brackish water. Generally speaking, it likes the same environments as the mangrove, though it's nowhere near as common. In Florida and in the U.S. in general, the Manchineel is endangered, but tends to occur in clusters, assuming you want to find one for some reason. It's most common in the Flamingo section of the Everglades National Park, along with some smaller Floridian islands like Elliott Key or Key Largo. There are other very small populations elsewhere in the Keys, says Hammer. It's quite common around some of the coastal mangrove buttonwood forest near Flamingo. In looking into the Manchineel, I was most curious about its place in the chaotic ecosystem of South Florida and the Caribbean. What could possibly be the evolutionary reason, I wondered, for a tree to be this toxic? The sap is fairly easy to explain as a method of deterring herbivores who might otherwise want to harm the tree by eating its leaves or bark. But the fruit, in particular, baffled me. Fruits typically are designed to trick animals into spreading seeds, since trees can't spread seeds themselves. The tree wants animals to eat the fruit. The animal, ideally, will eat the fruit and poop out the seeds somewhere else, scattering them with a nice helping of fertilizer to help them grow somewhere new. Hammer says that mammals generally find the manchineel fruits completely toxic. I'm just going to skip the Latin or scientific word for it and just call it the little apple that makes horses mad, showing that we're not the only species to find the fruit problematic. Iguanas appear to be immune to the toxin, and in parts of Central and South America do indeed eat the fruits and disperse the seeds. But iguanas are not native to South Florida. The few that are there, like the mystery monkey of Tampa, foreigners who have been dropped into the ecosystem and have found it to their liking. And the Floridian manchinales look not to animals, but to the seas for help spreading the seeds. In much of its range, it's a coastal species, so tides and currents are its principal dispersal mechanism. Fruits drop from the tree into nearby water, and thanks to its buoyancy, is taken by the tides somewhere else. Eventually the fruit rots and the seeds can grow. This is an uncommon method of seed dispersal, as being used by such common plants as the coconut palm. The toxicity to humans, though, that's a mystery. There really isn't any evolutionary answer to its being toxic, other than to just say it's a biological mistake, because it certainly doesn't gain anything by being toxic to humans. It could simply be a handover from some past point in its evolutionary history when the tree had to discourage animals from eating it. The fruit doesn't gain anything, sure, but because its seeds can be dispersed by water, it also doesn't lose much. It's not all bad, though. The wood has been used for non-lethal purposes and actually prized for some purposes like cabinetry and servingware. To make it usable, it has to be burned at the base to cut it down. Nobody has any interest in getting in there with an axe and chopping at the manchineel trunk, then dried for several days in the sun to neutralize the sap. Interestingly, though, the manchineel is the deadliest tree in the country. It's not the deadliest plant. There are other plants, not trees, in Florida that are more toxic than the manchineel. And one is the spotted water hemlock. A 1/4 inch of this stem is enough to kill a person, calling it probably the most violent poisonous plant in North American continent. Of course, it's also found in Florida, America's weird, most fascinating, and apparently most treacherous ecosystem. There is also something else I want to point out with the burning of the wood of the manchineel tree. Burning of the wood is problematic in and of itself, because you wouldn't want to be anywhere near the burning of that wood, because the smoke, if it gets in your eyes, can cause temporary blindness. You don't even want to be near the smoke of it. It's that bad. I would say overall this tree should be the "don't fuck with me" tree, would be my name for it. Plus, if there would be any validity to the God of the Bible and the story of Genesis, if it would want to have a tree that would be death to eat of it, this sumbitch would have been a perfect candidate. But this type of tree could not have been in that type of environment, because that was not a coastal location. Now, this was clearly not what the person was trying to get me to think of when they mentioned the Tree of Death. Because when I first looked it up, this was what came up. And I had posted this back to him, and I was like, who knew? Because it was, and I was hoping to get more information on what exactly this inverted form of the Tree of Life would be driving at, or basically what's the point of this? Is it just to have basically like the opposite type of thing? Because I see that as a bit problematic. There's also different ideas come up with this lower portion, and it seems, at least on the surface, to be what I would call not satanic, but more reverse Christian in nature. Because Satanism really is atheism in devil clothes. That's at least the Anton LaVey version. There is what is termed theistic Satanist, but that deals far more with the origins of the character of Satan, which actually goes back to Sumer, which is predating Judaism or the Abrahamic religions. And that gets into the aspect of the Sumerian gods, which were called the Anunnaki, which I can get into more in a later video, and probably will, because of the connection that would have to the alien subject, because that is essentially what the Anunnaki would be, and the idea of like an Illuminati bloodline, especially with how much a bloodline was part of the Old Testament and the Abrahamic God and its interest, it is reasonable to conclude that whatever aliens created religion with us were also very bloodline oriented and focused. But all of this is another rabbit hole that I will go down in time, but I'm trying to get a hold of Mark Powers again, because I'd really like to talk to him and consult with him regarding anything with the Kabbalah, given that that is Jewish. Although I don't know if he would know anything about that level of Jewish mysticism. I don't know. But he would be my go-to for any questions pertaining to Judaism. I'm also going to be talking to my friend Tom Blackwood about this idea of a tree of death, because if there would be anything to it, and it would be along the lines of Satanism, he would be my go-to there. Because there are areas like Satanism or Judaism that I will openly admit I'm not an expert. I'm very good at research, but when going into things that are deep, like the Kabbalah or anything that would be quote-unquote satanic, I would defer to more experts on the field, because my research could be accurate or it could be flawed because of getting it from the internet, and I'm not one to it's online, so that means it's true. No, I don't work that way. But I would love to hear your thoughts, and if there are any other rabbit holes that you would like me to explore. I am willing to explore any rabbit hole you want, or that you're interested in. Just don't be cryptic with me. I try not to ask for much, but because I had asked this person about this and had said, are you saying that the God character would be a female? And his response was White King, Red Queen. And I'm like, what the hell does that mean? That's where I had said, if you're going to be cryptic, I'm not going to waste my time. Because that, to me, makes no sense. If you guys can make sense out of White King, Red Queen, please drop that in the comments section, because to me, that's just a bunch of nonsense and gibberish. And if all I'm going to get from somebody is nonsense and gibberish, I'm going to assume that the rabbit hole they would want me to go down is nonsense and gibberish. But feel free to leave your thoughts and comments in the comment section. Talk to you later, people.